All right, Nuggets fans, welcome into Pickaxe and Roll, brought to you by our good friends over at BETONLINE and number 38. I am your host, Ryan Blackburn at NBA Blackburn on Twitter, part of the Mile High Sports Podcast Network, and I am very excited to be hopping in here and previewing a game day. Denver Nuggets game day, regular season opener is starting now, and I am very excited for it. If you are listening to this on Thursday, hopefully you're doing so before the NBA season has started for your Denver Nuggets. And if not, then hopefully I made some good predictions on this one and some good insights on this one. I'm hopeful that happens, but we've been prepared. We've been writing. We've been podcasting. We've been doing a whole bunch of content over the course of this last week, getting everybody prepared for what is to come this season. I'm going to start things off in the first segment by sort of giving my large overarching picture takes on where this season is heading into the first game of the season and just what I'm expecting. And then in the second and third segments, we'll get into the nitty-gritty of the Denver versus OKC matchup tonight on TNT at 8 p.m. Mountain Time. I am very excited for it. I hope all of you are too. If you're here, thank you so much. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Would really, really appreciate it. Hope everybody's having a good day. Really quickly, this podcast is brought to you by our good folks over at BetOnline. Basketball fans, it is that time of year once again. The NBA is back from opening tip-off to buzzer beaters. BetOnline has you covered with the best odds, biggest promotions, and live in-game betting on all of your favorite teams. This season, every single game matters, and BetOnline has every stat, matchup breakdown, and live odds during the game to bet on. And it's not just the NBA, of course. BetOnline has props for football, baseball, NHL, and political props even. Head on over to their website today to get in on the action and get yourself started with some online wagering. BetOnline, the game starts here. All right, Bills out of the way. Let's talk basketball. Let's talk Denver Nuggets, and let's talk all of the things that I think everybody is very excited to hear. I was on another show earlier this week, and I did some predictions. And the vibes are pretty good though over there. The vibes pretty good for the Denver Nuggets, despite the fact that I've been pretty negative, of course, over the course of this preseason, this time where the Nuggets haven't necessarily shown me as much as I thought that they would during this time. I thought that there would be a little bit more hunger. I thought there would be a little bit more desire. And then this last week kind of happened, and I wrote about it a little bit. I am, hold on, let me just text back Anilo, who decided to text me during the podcast. The vibes changed over the course of this week. I don't really know how to explain it, and it's honestly like media doesn't get the full peek behind the curtain, of course, with the Nuggets, with everything. I think NBA media in particular is a little bit more separated from the goings-on of the day-to-day. But the little peek that we did get, I was pretty impressed. I was pretty impressed with where the team's head was at, who was communicating, the energy in the gym, things like that. That's stuff that Russell Westbrook brings. It's stuff that we don't necessarily get to see all the time. But also just the focus, the level of desire to be successful for Murray, for Porter, for Jokic. And I hadn't seen a lot of that through the first few games of the preseason, but it just seemed like over the course of this last week, a switch was kind of flipped, and the Nuggets have sort of started to lock in. They've made it known that this is now their time to really get going on this particular stuff. And the vibes are pretty good. Everything feels right. The NBA is now back in full swing here. Tuesday was a good opening night for the NBA. Last night was a lot of fun catching it on League Pass and seeing all of the different games being played. It just felt like things were back to normal. And I think the Nuggets are kind of back to normal here, where I think that they're going to win the title. And people might be surprised by that after the way that I have approached things over the course of this past few weeks. But I just am going to choose to believe. As I said over on Locked On, I'm just going to choose to believe for what the Nuggets are doing, what they're trying to accomplish, the plan of action that they have. And there's enough elements to it that I think can move them in the positive direction that not a lot of people nationally are talking about. There is very much a reason to believe in the bench unit this year, a lot more than last year. I mean, just think about it night and day from last year. I put out this stat last night, and I don't think people fully internalized it. All of last season, 82 games in grand total, the Nuggets had 4 total performances where a bench player scored 20 points. 20. Like, I'm not even making the cutoff that like crazy. It's just, hey, did you play an extended amount? And did you give the team some scoring that they desperately needed? And the answer for the vast majority of the season last year was no. It's why I'm high on Julian Strawther now. It's why I think that Russell Westbrook at least has the capability to give the Nuggets some extra oomph. And I think that the development of Peyton Watson and the addition of Dario Saric is going to help Denver and at least one of those 4 between Russell Westbrook, Julian Strawther, Peyton Watson, and Dario Saric. I think that one of those 4 can have a 20-point game every 5 games or so. It's not even that crazy. We'll see what ultimately happens. We'll see if I'm wrong, and I'm probably wrong by that. But this is just me thinking that Denver has a chance to do something that I was surprised that they didn't do a lot of last year. It was crazy. Julian Strawther had 2 of the top 4 scoring performances last year, and he barely played after January 4th. I couldn't believe it when I saw that number. Reggie Jackson had 1 20-point performance for the entire season off the bench. He had some while he was in the starting unit, don't get me wrong, but that's different. It's different. So I'm thinking that there is something more from this bench unit that the Nuggets can provide, that they can have, that they didn't have last year. And then the conversation becomes, all right, so you lose KCP. Can Christian Braun step into that role? I'm not sure if Christian Braun's going to be 100% of what KCP was, but if he can be 80 to 90% of what KCP was, I believe that they're going to get it done. I believe that they're going to figure it out. There were plenty of times in last year's playoffs where KCP was not the answer from a playoff perspective. There were plenty of times last year where KCP had 3 total shots and wasn't the be-all, end-all as the defensive guy. That's going to happen with Christian Braun this year. There's going to be times where he isn't fully there, isn't fully ready for that moment. Well, it's a good thing that the Nuggets have a couple of other options and guys that I think can potentially survive. We'll see what ultimately happens with it and whether they can get it done. But beyond that, it's just my belief in the core 4 bouncing back from last year. Everybody was pretty pissed at the way that things happened last year. My belief is that the continuity and the chemistry and the desire to play for each other has gone up and has not gone down. I think that Jokic will be very motivated. I think that Murray is extremely motivated at this point. I think that Porter is extremely motivated. I don't have any questions about Gordon and where his motivations are, but for the other 3, I think that the desire to put together a crazy run and get back to the NBA Finals is very high. And once they get there, I'm just going to choose to believe in Nikola Jokic. I think that it's a very reasonable place to be, and there's no questioning whether Jokic will be the best player in a series or not. He might not be if you go up against Luka Doncic or Shai Gilgeous-Alexander or probably not Joel Embiid because he won't be facing Embiid in the finals, that's for sure. But there is, I think, a couple of times where he might not be the best player in a series, but it just doesn't feel like that's going to be that frequent, if it will happen at all. I'm going to choose to believe that Jokic will be the best player because I think he solves problems in a way that no other player in the NBA has really been able to. I think he got last year at the end by Minnesota and kind of got baited into taking a bunch of threes. That's not going to happen this year. He's going to figure it out. Nuggets are going to be fine, and I'm just going to pick them to win. I am going to choose to believe. And that's where the vibes are pretty high. That's where things feel pretty good. I could be wrong. There's no doubt about it. I've been wrong plenty of times before. Last year around February, if you remember, I kind of put up a stink about I don't think the Nuggets have enough. I don't think they have enough guys. And that turned out to be true. So I'm not going to sit here and be the complete homer that that will appear sometimes on this show. There are times where I try to see through a Nuggets colored glasses, and there are times where I try to see things for what they really are. I believe that this is one of those times where I'm seeing it for what it is. I'm sort of buying into the Kool-Aid a little bit, I know, because not a lot of other people are doing the same. But I think that there is at least a world where the Nuggets win a title, and I think it's a lot more closer to reality than a lot of people think. So it's nice to be on that side of things. I just want to be positive. You guys know how much I have a trouble being positive on most things in general. So this is my choice. I am going to choose to believe. Whatever the formula is, we're going to figure it out. All right, let's take a break. When we come back, we're going to get into the thick of it. We're going to talk Nuggets versus Thunder tonight. Couple different wrinkles, couple different things that I'm looking forward to. I put out a couple previews on Mile High Sports. You can make sure to check those out too. But let's take a break. When we come back, we are going to chat about Nuggets versus Thunder. We'll be right back here on Mile High Sports. And we're back. Pickaxe and Roll. Ryan Blackburn here. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. Appreciate all the love and support on the podcast. As always, folks, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. I really am putting out a wall of content right now. If you've seen Mile High Sports lately, I have 2 articles up there. One is kind of a long-term season preview for the Nuggets. And then I'm going to try to do this thing before every game day where I post a little mini preview, not something extensive, probably like 500, 600 words on each Nuggets game, and providing some insight on rotations and lineups and injuries and stats and things that I'm looking for, and just give a general taste of what's to come for that game tonight. So that's what I did over at Mile High Sports. Make sure to check it out. Also, well, actually, I won't advertise the other thing because I feel kind of separation of church and state, if you know what I mean. All right. Second segment. Let's get into Nuggets versus Thunder. The matchups in this one are so fascinating. And obviously the Thunder last year were tremendous. They were great. They were a really, really good team. They ultimately won 57 games, just like the Nuggets, I believe. They were the first seed, and they turned what was one of their biggest weaknesses in Josh Giddey in the starting lineup into a strength, where they turned him into Alex Caruso, somebody who fits a lot better for what they're trying to accomplish and doesn't need to play in the starting lineup the entire time. They also just added Isaiah Hartenstein for free because they're such a young team and they had the cap space to do it. Isaiah Hartenstein's probably going to be their starting center for much of the season. He's not going to play in this matchup, nor, by the way, is big Arkansas Jalen Williams, who in this past year was forming that tandem with Chet Holmgren and giving the Nuggets some trouble with the too big look that they were providing. So with Hartenstein and Jalen Williams out for this particular matchup, that means that Chet Holmgren is going to start at the 5. I am almost certain about that. I don't see any other players on their roster that even makes sense for them to do anything other than that. So you got Hartenstein out, Jalen Williams, the big Jalen Williams out. That means that Chet at the 5 and smaller Jalen Williams, J-Dub, at the 4. Now, J-Dub is still pretty strong for a wing, but he's a wing. He's not like a true power forward either. So I think the Nuggets can start off in this matchup with a size advantage over Chet Holmgren and Jalen Williams, J-Dub. Jokic and Gordon are going to be essential in this matchup. How the Nuggets approach that matchup is going to be fascinating. I think that Denver What I've learned last year about the OKC matchup is that the Nuggets can't spam that. They have to use it opportunistically. If they go to Jokic and Gordon consistently over and over on the interior, one, those guys are going to tire out physically and they're not going to be able to handle the defense. Two, OKC's defense will adjust. They have the best perimeter defense in the NBA, and that gets even better with Caruso out there. Just think about it. They have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Lou Dort, Alex Caruso is probably in their starting lineup for this particular game, and they've got guys like Aaron Wiggins and Cason Wallace coming off of their bench. So those guys are going to be pests, absolute difficult pests that the Nuggets are going to have to deal with on the perimeter. And what they're just going to do is they're going to collapse on the interior guys, and they're going to double and they're going to wreak havoc and do all those things that you want a good defense to do to bother the opposition when they're trying to operate it a little bit more slowly, get into the paint, do those things. So if I'm the Nuggets, I have to figure out how to match up well with Jokic and Gordon versus Chet and J-Dub. That's the most important thing. But the second most important thing is figuring out how to continue to free up Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr. That's a matchup that I wrote about in the article today. And I think it really means a lot what they're going to ultimately provide. I don't think that Shai is going to guard either of those two. But if he did, I think he'd probably guard MPJ. They're going to put somebody that's a pest on Murray and try to bother him as much as possible. Usually that's Lou Dort. But they have flexibility this year, OKC, that they can put Alex Caruso on Jamal Murray, who's given Murray problems in the past. And they can put Lou Dort, who's a absolute menace, who won't let Michael Porter dribble at all and will bother him on the perimeter on MPJ and try to disrupt his outside rhythm. So that is really where the crux of this, it's like the swing portion of this is going to be, because I expect Jokic and Gordon to probably combine for about 50 points, maybe 45, but probably closer to 50. And if you're Denver and you have a core four, you don't need a ton from your second unit. You might need a fair amount because I think OKC is going to score on the other end. But if you're Murray and Porter, you probably need to combine for at least 40 points. And so you get about 90 from your core four guys. And then the hope is that you win a game, probably 125 to 120, because I think the over is going to hit tonight. I really do. I think that both teams are going to struggle to guard each other. So can Jokic and Gordon outmatch what Shai, what Chet, what those guys are going to do? And can Murray and Porter figure out how to attack Alex Caruso and Lou Dort efficiently and effectively? That's a fair question. Lou Dort has done a great job on Murray in the past. Like I said, he's probably going to be on Porter a little bit more frequently in this one. And then the other matchup that we should probably talk about, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander versus Christian Braun. I am assuming that Christian Braun is going to be the starter. I think that's what's going to happen. However, there's at least a possibility that Julian Strawther plays a little bit more. We've got some comments on it in the comment section here. I think that the Nuggets are going to need some spacing. They're going to need some shooting. They're going to need some potent offense in this particular game. Of course, if they take Christian Braun out, then that means that one of Murray, Gordon, Porter, or Julian Strawther is going to be guarding Shai Gilgeous-Alexander for the entire time. And I don't think that's what the Nuggets really want to do either. So they're going to have to figure that out. There's a big question mark as to how they slow down Shai. Can they slow down Shai at all? Or is he just going to get 35 efficient points and generate great shots consistently? That's a matchup that I'm looking at. So can Christian Braun survive on the offensive end? And can he make an impact against Shai on the defensive end? That's another thing, obviously, to watch out for. I would probably obviously give the advantage to SGA in that situation. But Braun, I think, has a good mentality for these things. He's going to compete. He's going to do what he can. He's also a pretty disciplined defender in terms of not getting off of his feet. And that's something that SGA tries to take advantage of a ton when he's going at guys. He's trying to get them bothered and get them off balance. So can Christian Brown, force him into some tough shots because he's not falling for the pump fakes. I think that's a very strong possibility that he does that. In which case, the Thunder are probably going to hunt other matchups. They're probably going to try to get Christian Brown switched off of him, probably get Murray switched onto him, Porter switched onto him, and that's when Shai will really cook. If they do that consistently, it might not be the worst idea to play Strother anyway, because if he's going to get a good matchup every time down, you might as well go get the offensive guy and put him on the floor. So it'll be fascinating to see how Denver runs that rotation. Finally, in terms of matchups, how will the benches respond? What are the Nuggets going to look like with their second unit? I made a prediction over on the other show that the Nuggets would stagger Christian Brown. That may not happen if they want to match his minutes with SGA, but if they do decide to stagger Christian Brown, he'll probably play with Russell Westbrook, Julian Strawther, Peyton Watson, and Dario Saric. I think that they go with 9. I do not think that they go with 10. I think this is an important game for the Nuggets that they believe that they can win, and they want to set the tone for the beginning of the season. I just don't think there's a power forward that they really trust out of the gate, whether it's Zeke, whether it's Vlatko, whether it's Hunter Tyson, whether they're moving Saric to the 4 and they're playing somebody like DJ at the 5. I don't think that those are the matchups. I think they would prefer to just go with 9 and see whether they can compete with one of the top teams in the league. But the other bench on the other side, because Isaiah Hartenstein and Jalen Williams are out, you've got Cason Wallace, Isaiah Joe, Aaron Wiggins, and Ousmane Dieng. I think that he's probably going to be the main guy for them off the bench as their backup center. So they're going pretty small. If Denver can bully them into the paint, if Russell Westbrook can consistently get into the paint and draw fouls and maybe finish at the rim a little bit, drop it off to Peyton Watson or Dario Saric underneath, the Nuggets should be able to generate some good, efficient offense with their second unit. In addition, Julian Strawther, if he is freed up by actions that they run, I think can have a nice little impact against whether he's being guarded by Isaiah Joe or Aaron Wiggins, probably Aaron Wiggins. But if he's being guarded by Isaiah Joe on a consistent basis, he should try to attack that matchup and do the same thing that Isaiah Joe generally does to the Nuggets. So I think, like I said, this is going to be a pretty high scoring matchup. And I'm very curious to see what Denver does if they get into a shootout. Ryan, do you think Vlatko gets any minutes? I've gone back and forth on whether Denver will actually go 9 or 10. I just think that it's going to be 9. I think that they're probably going to stick with that consistent 9-man rotation. It just doesn't make sense to me to really go beyond that. I think that Vlatko will have his opportunities, like against the Clippers on Saturday. I think that he will probably be the 10th guy off the bench. But if they decide to go with 10, then maybe Vlatko's the right guy, just kind of playing the connection game and doing things that you need to do on both ends of the floor from a connectivity standpoint. And maybe Vlatko can be that guy. Michael Malone has talked about it being hard to play 10 guys when he's wanting to stagger a starter. And I think that they're going to try to stagger a starter, whether it's Christian Brown or it's Jamal Murray or it's Michael Porter. I don't know who it's going to be, but I think they just simplify it and go with 9. There's another question. Nope, that's it. All right, let's take another break. When we come back, we'll do some predictions, talking about avoiding overreactions, things like that, and trying to evaluate Denver in a benchmark game, which this is definitely a benchmark game for sure. And I'm very excited to see how Denver handles it. We'll be right back. But first, I want to tell everybody about number 38, who's been the great host for Nuggets watch parties, for CU Buff watch parties. Denver's got a lot of great spots downtown. There's no question about it. But number 38 is one of my favorites because of the way that they treat their guests. They want to get a wide open floor on the interior. It's got indoor, outdoor seating. Got plenty of opportunities to view games, to just hang out with friends. And the 200-inch screen that they have outside is always very fun when it's when the weather's reasonably good. it generally happens like that in the evenings as well. So if the weather's good, make sure to go check out number 38. Go get the outdoor seating that they've got and let them know that you came from Mile High Sports, where they've got some great drink options, great food options. I love their chicken sandwich for like obvious reasons. Fried chicken and is pretty freaking good. But I do think that number 38 does a great job with it, and the rest of their menu as well. They've got like pizza and brunch options. It's tremendous. So let them know that you came from us here at Mile High Sports. All right, final segment, Pickaxe and Roll. Wanted to also go over Chet at the 5 really quickly. How the Nuggets decide to guard 5-out spacing against the Thunder is going to be a very interesting task. One of the things I've been thinking about from the Nuggets from a defensive perspective is how much bigger they are can also be a deterrent on the defensive end. They'll be great rebounding for the most part, especially when teams aren't crashing the glass a ton on perimeter jumpers. The Thunder will do that. They've learned from the Celtics. The Celtics do that a ton. And the Nuggets will have to obviously control the glass in this one if they're going to play as big as they are. But with Chet at the 5, J Dub at the 4, and like the next biggest guy on OKC is probably Shai. Like Lou Dort is a little bit shorter than him, and Alex Caruso is probably the smallest guy on the team, or smallest guy on the floor, but he's obviously feisty as all hell. I think that how Denver decides to match up on the perimeter is going to be fascinating. Can Jokic guard the pick and pop, or are they going to do some sort of rotation where the top side guy on the weak side kind of rotates over and takes the pick and pop option, and then the Nuggets rotate behind it? I think that they've done that in the past pretty well. It was one of the things that they did to avoid having Jokic in mismatches a ton. They would keep him on the low side of the floor, protecting the rim, and just like monitoring the paint, and everybody would rotate around him. Can the Nuggets handle that? I don't know. It's the first game of the season. We'll see whether they can, but all of these guys have been with the Nuggets for a while. So if Denver can do those rotations and make it so that they avoid giving Chet Holmgren a wide open 3 on a consistent basis, then that would be great. But I do think that if there was one thing I'd be worried about for the Nuggets this game, it is Jokic getting out to the perimeter, contesting Chet's shot pretty consistently. I think that there's a chance that Chet can make 5 threes in the first half before the Nuggets decide to adjust. And they'll probably live with it initially, but I just think that that's going to be a pivot point for sure. And if the Nuggets can stop that, then that's probably a really great sign that they're going to win the game. If they don't stop it, then the Thunder are going to open up an early lead, and it's going to open up some other things for them on the offensive end. All right. Let's make a prediction. I think Denver loses this game, personally. It doesn't mean that I think they're going to lose against OKC in a playoff series. It doesn't mean I think that the game won't be close or that the Nuggets don't have a chance or anything like that. I just think that initially, from a readiness perspective, the Thunder really impressed me when they came to Denver. They were on their shit. They were doing great. And I think the 3-point conversation is going to get very interesting. As I mentioned with Chet just now, it's not just him who's going to shoot a bunch of threes. I think that Shai will probably take more threes than expected. I think that they're going to be able to kick out, and if they grab any offensive rebounds, it's going to be offensive rebound, kick out 3 on a pretty consistent basis. If it's in transition, if the Nuggets are turning the ball over, then they'll try to match up with Denver as best as they can, and Denver will try to match up too. But I just think that OKC has an advantage there just from a personnel standpoint. The 3-point conversation will be fascinating because the Nuggets are probably not going to be able to get a bunch of threes off. They're probably going to focus very heavily on the paint with as undersized as OKC is. And I wonder if Denver wins the paint battle like 65-40 against OKC, but OKC outscores Denver by about 30 points from the 3-point line. So that's going to be a fascinating breakdown. How that works is going to be interesting. And I'm looking forward to seeing whether Denver can prove me wrong on that. But I would just not get my head up too high if I was the Nuggets fan on this one. this matchup with Chet at the 5 and then Shai running pick and roll and pick and pop with him is just going to be really difficult for Denver to guard. If they can guard it, then great. And that will give me some great signs for where they are at already. But I just think that that's going to be something that Denver struggles with. And then the bench is just such a wild card in terms of, I think that Denver has an advantage here when they play all of their guys. But Peyton Watson hasn't played yet. Russell Westbrook and Dario Saric, how that works against a team like OKC, I don't really know. Will Russ be on point, or will he be a little bit too wild? That's a great question. And can Julian Strawther shoot efficiently in this particular one when he gets the opportunities? Like, is he going to go 2 of 8 from 3, or is he going to go 4 of 8 from 3? That might be a big question. So going to be fascinating to see how they handle it and how it breaks down. This is a benchmark game, clearly. If Murray and Porter can get about 40 to 45 points between them on pretty solid efficiency, I think that Denver probably wins this one, because I expect Jokic and Gordon to be very good. I don't really expect Murray and Porter to be great in this one. That's not my expectation going into it. So if they can be, more power to Denver, more power to the way that they handle it. But that's going to be one where if Murray has a bad game, I'm just not going to be surprised. That is a really tough perimeter defense to go against. And Porter, like, we'll see whether he can get open shots. I just think that OKC is going to do a good job of limiting those open looks if they possibly can. Also, who's going to stagger? That's another fair question too that I'm going to be very fascinated with. Benchmark game, you obviously want to win your benchmark games against these other elite teams. OKC is one of those teams that Denver's going to have to measure themselves against the entire year, because I think OKC is going to win a lot more games than Denver in the regular season. Probably close to 60 for them, and for Denver, probably close to about 52 to 53. So that is a pretty crazy disparity if you think that you're going to try to compete against them to win a title. Now, regular season wins don't necessarily mean everything when it comes to title odds and matchups and things like that. But I do think that it will be something that Denver has in the back of their head. If they lose every single game that they play, or they go 1-3 like they did last year against OKC, and OKC wins those, like they outpace Denver by 7-8 wins in the regular season, then that is going to be a pretty fascinating sort of psychological breakdown. Games like this are prime for overreactions. And you guys have known me to overreact every now and then to a Nuggets victory or a Nuggets defeat. There's no doubt about it. Sometimes it's okay to react, and it's okay to even overreact. That's what sports are all about to me. That's what sports are. You want your people to care about what the game is going to be. And Nuggets fans, if Denver loses in a blowout tomorrow, I want you to overreact. If Denver wins in a blowout tonight, I want you to overreact. I want you to think that it is okay to have some emotional reaction to this game. Yes, you want to also have the perspective that it is 1 out of 82 regular season games, and just because you win or lose the opener doesn't mean you'll win or lose the season. But it's also okay to have fun. It's okay to live with your heart on your sleeve a little bit in this situation. I'll try to hold myself in check, but no promises, right? If the Nuggets look bad, I'm going to say so. If they look good, I will say so too. And that's my promise to you throughout this regular season and into the playoffs, and things that I've done on Pickaxe and Roll for the better part of the last 3 years. I'm going to do what I can to give you the best coverage possible. I'm putting out a whole bunch of work on multiple platforms now, and I'm happy about it. I'm doing what I want. I'm doing what I love, and I have enjoyed the process. So if you like my content, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, leave a positive review on iTunes, Apple, whatever you want. I think that this is going to be a good season for the Nuggets. It's going to be a polarizing season. It's going to be an up and down season. But by the end of it, I think, or at least I hope, Nuggets fans are going to be pretty happy. That is going to do it for this episode of Pickaxe and Roll, brought to you by our good friends over at BetOnline and number 38. Oh, we got a buzzer beater super chat tonight, or for today, for Cedric Exquisite. Who do you think will be our unsung hero tonight? Let's go with Well, for unsung, it's going to be Aaron Gordon because he's going to get a whole bunch of these easy offensive rebounds and like these points in the middle, and he's going to be solid defensively, and people are going to be like, yeah, he was good. He'll probably get about 18 points, 8 rebounds, 5 assists, and be pretty efficient. That's my hope. And if he does that, I think the Nuggets they're in a pretty good position to win. So we will see. Everybody, thank you so much for tuning into the show. Thank you, Cedric, for the buzzer beater super chat. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button on the way out. I am looking forward to tonight. We'll give you the best coverage I can. We'll talk to you guys very, very soon.